Welcome into another edition of the Leadership Library, hosted by CEO and author Rocky Romanella. Rocky is the author of the book Tighten the Lug Nuts, The Principles of Balanced Leadership, and has over 40 years of business experience as a prominent member of the UPS Supply Chain Solutions team, as well as the CEO of Unitech Global Services. So sit back, grab your notebook, and take a seat, and get ready for this edition of the Leadership Library.
Welcome to the Leadership Library. I'm your host, Rocky Romanella, and this is our fourth skill, and that is being an accountability owner. And I think this is such an important skill, as they all are, but I think this is one that talks about your self-accountability, holding yourself accountable, and then holding your people accountable. I think it's important to understand. It starts with understanding the goals. Do I really understand what you're holding me accountable for? I think you cannot assume that people clearly understand what the goals are, what we're trying to accomplish, and what role they play in that. And so I think that, so now you're starting to see how we tie this all together, right? Because I have to be a good communicator. I have to sit with you, explain the goals. We build the goals together. I have to understand your strengths. If I understand your strengths, weaknesses, I also understand if you have a weakness, I have to help you through that, right? So if I'm going to hold you accountable for this goal, I've clearly explained it to you. You nod back that you understand it. You recite back that you understand it, but you don't have the skill to execute on it. Then that's something we have to work together. And so that becomes part of my responsibility to you as an accountability owner to help you through that. So first we develop the goals. We have to own the goals. I own them and you own them, and I own helping you achieve those goals. And then you have to want to achieve those goals. The second is they have to be measurable, right? I have to believe I can do those things. So I think it's important that if you set goals that are unattainable, you really defeat me from the beginning. And so I feel as if that's a mountain just too high for me to climb. So I think the goals have to be attainable, they have to be achievable, and they have to be measurable. And I have to understand where I am in the process. So I have to know as time goes on. You know, my son and I, who's a baseball coach, we're having this conversation. There's a point in the schedule that if you got off to a difficult start, there's a point in the schedule that if you don't win that next few games, you may never get to 500 for the year. And if that was an achievable goal, you'll get past that point, which then means that all those games really may not mean as much anymore. People may just be playing out the string, as they say. And so I think it's important to understand the goals, and have them measurable, so you never allow yourself to get so far out of it that you can't get back into it. So then it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of defeat. So I think that's so important. I think you need to hold yourself accountable to the plans as well as the other people inside the organization. So now that you've set up this accountability process and people understand that you're that kind of person to hold people accountable, you have to understand something. There are no secrets in an organization. So everybody knows what everybody's doing. And so, for example, if everybody has to warm up before the game, or everybody has to do these three things, but I don't hold you accountable to do it, and now all of a sudden, they're off plan, but they're not being held accountable, everybody sees those things. So it becomes a fairness thing. So you need to understand that as the accountability owner, you have to understand that there are no secrets, that everybody sees everything, and everybody wants to be treated fair and equitably. And so that becomes important for you as that accountability owner to understand that you set the tone from the top and that people watch everything you do. And fairness is not that everybody's goal may be the same, but that everybody's being held accountable the same way. I think that's important. And finally, I think it's important to understand what you're trying to achieve and how it fits inside the organization. Because if I can understand what we're doing and how it's important and how what I'm doing is important, it makes it easier for me to, understand the goal, embrace the goal, and want to achieve the goal. But if what I'm doing seems like it has no place in the organization, it really doesn't matter, it may be more difficult for me to stay motivated. And if things aren't going well, to kind of work my way back into fixing those things that, are off a line or maybe off a plan. But if I'm not sure really what role it is and how it fits inside the organization, is this just an exercise in futility? Is this just am I just doing, an activity, or is what I'm doing important? So I think that's important as well. And your ability to communicate that is so important for them. So I think as an accountability owner, A, you have to understand the goals. B, you have to communicate them properly. C, you have to make sure they're measurable. B, people have to understand how this fits inside the organization and what role I play in this organization, and never allow me to get so far away from the goal that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that I'll never make the goal. Then at that point, it's almost like I give up. The organization's like, hey, we're never going to get there anyway. Let's just play out the string. That's a bad place to be.